I want to hear about some unsuccessful stuff.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the Wind
Yeah.
River High Route?
We summited Wind River Peak at 13,000 feet, and we had to descend down a gully. Super sketchy. Talus, loose rock, cliffs. We only had to go like a mile and a half. It took us over 2 hours to descend that mile. And we were just ripped up. Dehydrated, altitude, exhausted, scared.
All right, let's get to this week's guest, a longtime friend of the pod and bona fide outdoor influencer, Chad Lubinsky. How's it going, Chad?
I'm doing great. It's nice to see you again, Doc.
Same here. So I saw you chuckle a little bit when I said a bona fide outdoor influencer. You think that's an accurate description?
Yeah, I think influencer has like this like weird context around it now because they're like, when I think of influencer, I think of like a Kardashian kind of something like that. And so I like to refer to it as a creator, content creator.
Outdoor
But you're right.
content
It's
creator.
it's the same thing basically.
So this whole Kardashian thing, is there a new trail name in there for you somewhere?
Oh, that's not bad. Maybe Hollywood or something like that.
Hollywood. I like it. I like it. All right. So remind us though of your trail name. Do you have a trail name? I've taken to calling you Chattahoochee or Hoochie
I
just
love
because of
it.
your Instagram handle.
Right. I love Hooch. I love it when you call me Hooch. Yeah. And I thought I should probably just switch it to that. But the only trail name I have is called Scratch from the Colorado Trail. And that was because I got this horrendous rash on both of my legs for like 2 weeks on the CT, and I had to get off, hitch out, and get it taken care of, come back all in the same day. It was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Scratch. I mean, that's good. That's a good trail name. But
Yeah.
in my mind, you're always Hooch. So I may not be able to convert.
Yeah, no, I like it. I love Hooch, so that works for me.
Okay. Hey, Hooch, have you been listening to the podcast at all lately?
Been a little bit, but honestly, I've been really into what the heck have I been listening to? Health and fitness podcasts a lot. So I've been listening to a lot of Huberman Lab. Have you ever heard of him? Really
I have
good
not.
guy.
Not.
Yeah.
What does he deal with?
Yeah, so he talks a lot about just different general health aspects. So like one that I've really been interested in is all about how light affects your hormones. And so it's actually it makes sense for a lot of us backpackers. Like when we wake up super early in the morning, you get this and you get light straight to your eye. It actually sets your circadian rhythm. And so that's why we like end up going to bed so freaking early all the time. Like remember when we were talking about like making a hiker midnight or something like that
That's
at the
right.
last podcast. And so it sets your circadian rhythm, and then also it sets off all these other really good hormones for the day. So he's like a big proponent of getting this light first thing in the morning in your eyes. And ever since then, I've like every morning now, like when I wake up and I'm backpacking, I never put my sunglasses on for like hours. When I used to always put them on right away. So now I'm getting that circadian rhythm and getting those good hormones. So yeah, really cool podcast to check out.
Man, that could have been your pro tip inside of the week, but you already ruined it there.
That's true. I did get one written down, so
Okay. All right. Can't wait to hear it.
The Must Bring Gear Review.
All right, Hooch. I'm sure you're familiar with this segment in the podcast. We've got a feature we've been doing called the Must Bring Gear Review, and it's sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company Six Moon Designs. Here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So, Hooch, what qualifies as a must-bring piece of gear for you?
So that's a good question. And okay, so I know that you've probably got every single backpacking answer under the moon, under the sixth moon, right? Or did I do it
Nice.
for you there?
I like that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with, and if I can't do this, you can tell me, but I'm gonna go with a piece of filming equipment for anybody that's trying to film something. So what I recently picked up was the DJI Mini, which I was just telling you I had to ditch our last podcast because I had a drone gig that I had to do, and so actually I have it right here. One second. I just got it back. It's this big. Check that out.
Wow, that's
how big it is. Yeah, I mean it probably looks big in the video right now, but I mean like this is my hand. And
Yeah,
this
if
is
you
like
hold it that close to the camera, of course it's going to look huge.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like right. So like right here, I mean, it's literally the size of like the palm of my hand. Obviously, you gotta pull out the propellers and stuff. But dude, this thing like for YouTube videos and stuff, to getting establishing shots of like where you're at and just different unique views has been absolutely incredible for me. Like all my best performing YouTube videos this year have been because of the drone shots, I think. It's a different view and it draws people in. So it's super light and for backpacking, absolutely perfect.
Okay. Well, you bring up an interesting point because as an outdoor influencer or a content creator, um, you have YouTube, you've got Instagram. Any other big brands, big pieces of social media?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok as well.
That's right,
Yeah.
TikTok. I see you on
Yeah.
TikTok. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're on there too. Yeah, those are the three main ones. Yeah.
Okay. And how big are they for you? I mean, how many followers do you have?
Yeah. So I was lucky and I got on TikTok at a really good time in 2020. And so I was able to get a pretty good following on there. And so right now I'm at 34.5 thousand. And then Instagram, I'm at 21.8 thousand. And then YouTube has been the one that has been my Achilles heel, actually. That has been, I was actually just sitting down looking at analytics before we got on, and I was just like, it is freaking tough to grow on YouTube. It's getting easier though with YouTube Shorts. So that's a good tip for anybody that's wanting to grow on there and monetize faster. It's getting better with that. So yeah.
Huh. So let's say hypothetically that some podcast host out there has not heard of YouTube Shorts. What exactly is YouTube Shorts? Because you're right, it's tough to grow on YouTube.
First of all, Doc, I gotta say I commend you for learning all of this stuff because it could be a lot of stuff, right? And the fact that you're doing the podcast, you're crushing it on the podcast, I just want to say you're doing a great job. And as far as YouTube Shorts go, it's basically Instagram Reels and TikTok just on YouTube. That's basically how you explain it. It's everything that I create on TikTok, I repurpose for Instagram and then YouTube. I like don't change anything about it. Maybe I'll put like a different song on there or something, but you can download for free off of TikTok the TikTok you made. So say you made a podcast thing, you want to put it on YouTube.
Right.
You take the link, you put it into this app called Snaptick. It removes the watermark, then you upload it to YouTube, and then you get exposure that way.
Snaptick. That sounds like a great trail name.
Snaptick, that's another good one too. Yeah, that's not bad. Yep.
Nice. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Because looking at the analytics and trying to grow your audience, I mean, it's tough out there.
It's tough out there, and right now it's getting not that it's getting tougher to grow, but it is getting tougher like monetize, because we're in a recession. I've been like all into this stuff, right? So like you're in a recession now, so less people are advertising, so your what they're called is your CPMs or your RPMs are going down. So
Right.
I've seen ad revenue decrease. We'll just say that. But hey, you still gotta make your money. Still a good time to grow though.
Somebody else told me that the algorithms are now designed to have that video content. It's they want you to post stuff to your story. They want stuff to be posted to Reels. They want to try and emulate like Snapchat.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And that's why I was able to grow on Instagram. I mean, if you looked at my Instagram a year and a half ago, I think I was at 1,000 followers. And so they started prioritizing Reels. And so whatever it is so if you think about it as real estate, if you're going to buy a house somewhere, you want to buy a house like in an up and coming neighborhood. It's the same thing with like the algorithm. So like when you see that like maybe one of these platforms is trending towards a certain feature, like you want to get on it fast. Like that's how I grew on TikTok fast. That's how I grew on Instagram fast. I still haven't caught that train though with YouTube yet, but yeah, you want to get like that underappreciated attention and that underappreciated real estate before it gets swiped up. And then there's, it's like a gold rush essentially.
Yeah, there's underappreciated real estate and then there's just underappreciated.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. JFM or JF. Yep.
All right. I know you've been a guest on the podcast before. Some of our listeners may be familiar with you. Some may not. Some may have no idea who you are, or why I'm talking to you. So remind us a little bit where you grew up, what your background was, and how did you get involved in the outdoor adventure lifestyle?
Yeah, so I am from the Midwest, Wisconsin, and I basically took a or I actually traveled out here with my girlfriend at the time. We moved right out of college, didn't know anybody, moved to Oregon. It was 2014. We had zero friends. I literally remember like sitting in our apartment watching How I Met Your Mother. We would refer to them as our friends because we knew nobody here, which was pretty wild. And yeah, I've always been attracted to the outdoors. We took a lot of college trips doing snowboarding and things like that. And when I would get back from those trips back to the Midwest, I was like, yeah, I don't think like this is kind of working for me anymore. So that's like when we ultimately decided to go. So yeah, I've been out here ever since. We're actually looking at moving, possibly. I can't say where, but it's a different state. It's a different state.
Wow, how come you can't say where? Is that a big surprise?
No, I don't want people rushing to this place. I feel like it's an up and coming place. So
Oh,
I guess I'm like in the scarcity mindset, maybe. I'm not in the abundant mindset for this one right now. So I'll tell you when we move, though. I'll let you know. You'll be the first one to know.
all right.
So,
Is it in
yeah.
the U.S.?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
You just don't want to drive up property values until you've secured your spot.
It's just like social media. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tag lightly.
Yeah. Although nobody's really probably buying places right now with everything going on. I don't know. At least that's what I hear.
Yeah.
But
Same girlfriend, or did you get married?
yeah, same girlfriend from last time that we were on. And so yeah, she's awesome. Haley's doing great. And
She's been
yeah.
your girlfriend since 2014.
No, that one moved to like San Francisco or something. She's getting married though, I think.
Just
Good
not
for
to you.
her. Just
Yeah.
not to me. Yeah,
Okay.
that one wouldn't work out.
Haley is still hanging out with you though.
Yeah, Haley's hanging out with me.
God
So
bless her.
yeah, I know, right? Straight up. So yeah, it's been good. She had an interview yesterday for this job, and now it would be really trying to figure out how I would fully monetize and be like a full-time income off of like the creator stuff, which is a little scary. It's been stressing me out a little bit the past couple days because I still have a full-time job right now, and it's pretty secure, but it's not like what I want to do for the rest of my life.
What is your full-time job?
I do cognitive behavioral therapy groups for
Oh,
people on
that's right.
parole and probation. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
so it's fine. I've just been doing it for too long. Been 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously I like to do new things and push myself. So yeah, I'd be really jumping off the ledge, I think, if I quit and then try to do the creator stuff full time.
Right.
So yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy in the correctional system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been involved in a prison riot? Have you ever had to hunker down, wait till
Well,
things sorted themselves
yeah.
out? Or
Well, I don't work in the prison. These are people out of custody, so they're on probation.
got it.
So I never go in the yeah, which would suck. Like I could not imagine myself like being in the actual yeah, that would suck. But I'm trying to think like really I haven't really had any issues, and I think that's because if you treat people with respect, usually they will respect you for the most part. And the only time I've ever really seen people like get jacked up is when I go across the street to the parole and probation, the actual parole and probation office. And sometimes maybe like a PO kind of isn't, I've always kind of had it in my head. I was like, yeah, that particular PO, they kind of come off a little bit, maybe a little bit demeaning. And I never want to be like that, right? And that's always those POs that kind of have the issues with people that get riled up at no surprise.
Yeah.
So I see that and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So,
I have to think that if you introduce yourself as the outdoor influencer or the content creator, maybe give them a sticker as you
Right.
as you first strike up your conversation. I mean, that might go a long way.
what's funny is out of all the clients I've worked with, nobody's ever brought it up. I'm like, That's really interesting. Like, I'm glad they haven't brought it up because I don't know how that would, yeah, I don't know what that would look like because it's always kind of a conflict of interest type of thing, but
Yeah.
nobody's ever said anything about it. I'm like, their algorithm they must really not be like into outdoor stuff. Like, I guess that makes sense, right? That's probably why they have really bad coping skills at this point in their lives, which is what we're trying to fix. But yeah.
Right. So could we extrapolate that had they been involved in the outdoors, maybe they wouldn't have gotten onto that path that they're currently on.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell them when I'm leading my classes, I say, okay, I want you to look over at the jail, which we're like right across from it. And I was like, I want you to think about how many people are in that jail or stateside, which is what they refer to as prison. I want you to think about how many people are in there and how many of those people had just inadequate coping skills to deal with some type of situation that other people on the outside have dealt with before. They just dealt with it in a different way. So I always try to make them think about like obviously think before you act and play the tape forward to see where this could end you. You know, some guy mouthed off to you, oh, I'm gonna punch him in the face. Well, that's great, but now you've got an assault 2 or 1, and now you're landing in jail and you're getting booked in. So what are the pros and cons of these different things? And yeah, I think kind of extrapolating it out to people that are in jail or prison currently helps them kind of think about that in a different way.
Yeah, I have a couple of follow-up questions on that, or maybe a couple of follow-up points. One is stateside. That's interesting. They refer to it as stateside.
Yeah, yep, stateside. So yeah, it's just like common lingo. And everybody knows also that if you're going to get sentenced to something, like you don't want to you would rather do time, like you'd rather do a year in jail rather than a year in prison. Or no, sorry. You would rather do a year in prison rather than a year in jail in county. So you have county and stateside. So prison is stateside, county is jail.
Got it.
And typically jail conditions aren't as good as prison conditions
Mhm.
as far as like livabilities type of thing, because you're just crammed in with all these people in a pod,
Right.
and you don't have like TVs really, you don't have like a yard, you don't have activities. And so some prisons can be literally like dorm rooms. I mean, if they're minimal security type thing.
They've got upgraded slop on
Yeah,
stateside.
yeah, that
Got it.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
I like the way you point out to them, hey, look across the street. How many people are in there? How did they get there? Didn't make the best decisions. You don't want to make those
right.
decisions.
You can't. I remember when I first got into that career and I was giving advice to people that were twice my age, and I had just got out of college, and it's just like, well, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. Like I didn't have to deal with any adversity. I went to college, whatever. I didn't really have to deal with any adversity at that point. And now that I've done like several things of like hard, difficult things, I feel way more confident now teaching that and teaching, especially like the mindset type of stuff to people that didn't have role models when they were growing up. Really, that's a lot of it comes down to that as well. So I bet like he gets really good respect from these people. Like he's not just like a regular, they can look him up and see records, and I mean, he's a badass.
He is. He is.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool would that be to have him as your substitute teacher in
Right.
your seventh grade English class? I mean,
Right. Right. Yeah.
pretty darn cool.
Crazy stuff.
All right. So tell me, we talked about, what you're doing right now to pay the bills, and you're considering, or possibly in the future, you hope to be able to make this move to being supported through your social media and your influencing activities,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I think since the last time I talked to you, you have created something called outdoor media.
Yeah, so what I actually did with that is it's a keyword. So it's like a kind of a searchable keyword. So like if you were to go on Instagram and you just type in like outdoor media, hopefully like I would pop up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it gives you like a little bit more exposure. So I guess I haven't what I like to refer to what I do as outdoor media, but like I guess I did start kind of a business. I just kind of started it in my own name though, like an S corp.
Okay.
So it's just like because I can never just stay on one name. Like I know I would change it. So I'm just going to put it in my freaking name. You know what I mean?
You're
So,
stuck with
but
that one.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's basically what I do with everything. I mean, everything that I'm putting out is outdoor media in a way, I guess, you know? So it had a good ring to it. Feels, you know, it's a good keyword for people to search too, since all these systems are getting, all these platforms are going SEO, which is search engine optimization based, just like Google is. So it's good to get on that.
Okay. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear about what you've been up to for the last year and a half, talk about some outdoor adventures, some type 2 fun. And I noticed that you've been putting in some miles with some ultra marathons. And so we want to hear about that as well. So
Yes.
stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I've been talking a lot about growing on social media in this podcast. So if you want to get paid to do what you love, work wherever you want, learn how to work with brands in an extremely short amount of time, get the free ebook in my description, or sign up for my Outdoor Creator Academy course, which is specifically for the outdoor creator. Also, I'll be talking more about fitness and training as the podcast rolls on. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, sign up for my free First Light newsletter below in the description as well.
And welcome back. We're talking to the Hooch, the infamous Hooch, Chad Lubinsky. And has it been a year and a half since the two of us spoke last?
Couldn't be a year and a half, could it? Because we've done 2 podcasts prior to this, right? We've done 2.
This is number 3 for you. That's right. This is number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. I think it's about a year for sure.
Okay. Well, what have you been up to in terms of outdoor adventure in the last year?
Yeah, so 2022 has been interesting. So yeah, 21, I did the CT, right? And then I was like, okay, I want to kind of transition a little bit. I kind of want to round out my skill set. So obviously I signed up for the 100. I signed up for a 100 miler in January. Wasn't going to be run till the end of August. And I was just like, screw it, I'm doing it. Hit click, did it. So then the rest of my year really was prepping for the 100. And I don't like running. I don't know about you, but I hate running. I really don't like it. Long mileage anyway. Like it ruins your day. It's like, it's super tiring, whatever. So I was like, I got to figure out a way to make this fun. So I had 6 months of training prep to this. Cause I did not want to run this race, drop out at mile 85 and then have to do the freaking thing over again. Was not an option for me. So I ended up, the first thing I kicked it off with was the 4x4 by 48. So that is by David Goggins, and it's the first week of March every year. And so people will start, and it's running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you start at 8 p.m. and it's actually Pacific time, which would be great for you if you did it. And you start at 8 p.m. and then you run, and then your next run is 12 a.m., 4 a.m., 8 a.m. And then it revolves until Sunday, basically. And so you kind of go into it thinking you have 4 hours to do this, but you actually really only have like, it takes you a half hour or whatever to run the 4 miles. And then you think you're going to go right to, well, you don't go right to sleep because you're jacked up. Your adrenaline has been going. I don't know if it's adrenaline, but your hormones are going from exercising. So you run for a half hour and then it takes like another 45, 50 minutes to actually possibly get any sleep. So then you have a little bit of sleep, then you got to wake up again. And then it's the whole thing over and over and over and over again. So that was a really interesting thing because I think about my 5th to last run, basically. So I had like 5 runs after this. Like I ended up kind of hurting my Achilles because I wasn't used to that much pavement running.
Yeah.
And so I actually got a really inflamed Achilles. So basically the last run that I did, it would take almost like 3 miles for it to warm up. And then I would like do good in the 3rd to 4th, but then I'd have to stop, And so every time I had to rewarm it up. It sucked. Anyway, like the last run, I was just like pretty much dragging that foot, but we got it done. It was cool. It was all good.
So doing the math on that, you're basically running 48 miles in 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 4 miles every 4 hours. There's 24 hours in a day. So that's 4 times 6 is 24 miles in 24 hours times 2, basically.
Right.
So 48 miles in 2 days.
Yeah, and like I mean, prior to that, I really hadn't been. I'd been probably doing like 10 miles a week, maybe something like that. So like I was not like my looking back on it, my body was just not. My ligaments were not in that shape to do it. At least to not be injured anyway. Mentally, I was there, but so. But what was really good about that, especially for 100, and I encourage anybody to do this if you're doing 100 or anything, is you have to deal with the sleep deprivation, which was what I was concerned about going into the 100, and that was the first thing that gave me really good confidence that I could conquer this sleep dep, and it was just a really good learning experience for that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to commit right now. I'm going to commit right now on the podcast that I'm going to do the 4x4 by 48 in
Awesome.
March.
Awesome. Dude, I cannot wait.
I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to document it.
Awesome. No, seriously, dude. It's really cool because like everybody from like kind of around the world will do it, and they'll start like at like usually around that same time. Like even David Goggins, because he lives in California, he'll start it at 8, and so like his social media, he'll go like live on it, and it's really cool because he'll go live periodically. He's like, because like the 4 a.m. run, the second night is the worst. That'll be the worst run. And he went live that day, and he's just like, all right, guys, like this is gonna be the worst run, because it's cold as shit. And like it's just not, you're already super stiff and sore. But it was just really cool to see everybody commenting on it. And yeah, dude, you'll crush it. I'm super pumped.
Wow. I don't know. I appreciate the confidence, but we'll see. But I'm gonna give it a shot. That sounds like a nice goal to do.
Yeah.
Now, tell me why decide to do a 100-miler? I mean, what possessed you to say, you know what, this is something I want to check off. This is something I want to do.
Yeah. Really, it kind of comes down to it was always a bucket list thing for me. And I think as you do more hard stuff, you start to becoming more confident and like thinking that like maybe you could do this. And that's kind of the point that I was at after the 50 miler I did. Even though I was like, I can't believe I would have to go 50 more miles. Like that's crazy. But it kind of really comes down to like, I just want to soak out every bit of potential that I could have with my life kind of thing. And that's been really easy for me to do, at least in the physical sense of maintaining goals and things like that. And so the 100 was one of the pinnacle ones for that, because it's like, it's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's a long run, man. It's a long run. But I don't want to be at the end of my life being like, oh, well, I was 30 and I just wussed out of this 100. I was in good shape, great enough shape. And so I knew that it would give me a longer launch pad for more stuff, because that's what the JMT did for me. That was like the first thing that like really clicked. And I was just like, oh, like, okay, I have been living at like 40%. So yeah, it was really just about reaching my potential and not regretting it towards the end of my life type of thing, to get real deep on you.
Good. I like deep. That's great.
Yeah.
Now take us through the 100-mile race. How did it go? And when you towed the line, when you got to that start line, what was going through your head? And what was the longest run you had done up to that point?
Yeah, longest run ever up to that point was my 50 miler. And in training, I had done 41 miles around Mount Hood, which was tough, but it was pretty fun. Well, that was more of an adventure. That was a crazy run because there was so much snow still, because we had so much snow in Oregon. It's like the only person on the trail. Anyway, so it was really weird because my girlfriend had crushed a half marathon a couple weeks before this. And it was really funny because her training run to that was like 11 miles. So you only have 2.1 miles to go. I'm sitting here like, I have to run another of the most I've ever done in my life. Kind of crazy.
That's wild.
So yeah, but I was like pretty calm at the start line. Like I was pretty cool. I think like I visualized it so many times, like what it would feel like in the race, starting the race, finishing the race. And so I was really just kind of on autopilot at that point. And I knew that I had my crew there, which was super cool. Like I had crew throughout the race. My parents were there, which I was super stoked about. And it was going to be a pretty mild day because it had been hot, 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 hot. Like if we would have done it the weekend before, I might not have finished it in 32 hours. So very fortunate with the weather, and I felt ready. Yeah, I was pretty much ready. Yeah, I was just thinking about getting to the first aid station. That's all. That's all.
And how far out was the first aid station?
I think it was 10.9 miles or something. 10.1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just cut it up into that, like chunks of aid stations. That's all I look. I never ever did I look at. I never calculated how much I had left. I was always like, okay, I have 4.1 to the next one. I have 9 to the next one. I have whatever. The only time I started doing that was when I was getting close to the cutoff and I had 18 miles left. And I think I had 3 hours to do it. That's when I got concerned about it. But otherwise, the rest of the race, I was totally cool.
So what was the total time limit on the race? You had to finish in how many hours? Otherwise, it was did not
Yeah.
finish.
32 hours you had to finish it in. Yep, 32.
Okay. Well, 100 miles in 32 hours. You're ready for the Barclays.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think so. I think Jeff Garmier might be, but yeah, no, I think I'm probably good. But yeah, I mean, I was definitely towards the end of the pack for sure. But like that didn't really matter to me because I just wanted to finish at the time. But
Absolutely.
Here's the other thing though. I gotta say this. So I'm running, and so there's cutoffs every so often at these aid stations. Like you have to be out of the aid station by so and so time, otherwise you're cut. The first cutoff was at 49.9 miles, and I'm running. And I'm like, okay, it's like kind of getting towards night. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick up the pace here, blah, blah, blah. I check my watch. I'm at 49. I'm like, okay, this should be like here, 49.9. I'm at 50. I'm at 51. I'm like, where is this aid station? It wasn't till 52 point and some change. This aid station shows up. My crew's like, where have you been? I'm like, dude, this aid station's like 2 miles. So the rest of the race was kind of this catch up thing. So I actually ended up with like 103 miles on my watch, which was super crazy because everybody had this. So like all of these cutoffs now were really, I was really stressing out about the cutoffs because they were like 2 to 3 miles off. So I had to be even faster than what I thought. I wanted to be like an hour and a half above cutoffs. I was being like an hour. Towards the end, I was like 30 minutes. Like I was concerned. So the fear really put me into another gear.
Wow. And that's frustrating because
Yeah.
whenever you have expectations and reality doesn't meet expectations, that's where the problems come in. That's where you get frustrated. You expect it's going to take this long, or it's just over this hill, and it turns out that it's not. And that's how I get frustrated on the trail, is when reality does not match expectations. So that had to be maddening.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. Actually, I got the chills from that because that is like exactly what it is. It's like you are banking on this thing. You're expecting it to happen. Your whole day is revolving, and your time and your crew and everything's revolving around this like specific mileage, specific time, and then it's just like it's just not there. Like, but it's the same with through hiking. Like you have to problem solve. And I was like, okay, well, there's something that's going to go wrong on this race for me. I don't know what it's going to be, but I knew something was going to like screw up. And I knew that I had to obviously I had to problem solve it. And so with this, it was just, thankfully my stomach didn't go south or anything like that. So I didn't really have any complications with that. It just was the fact of my expectations not being met. And like, now, okay, where does my head go? Because like, am I going to be negative about this and be like stressing out about it? Yeah. So you got to, expectations.
If you can manage your response to frustration, you've put yourself ahead of the game, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
A couple of personal questions about this 100 miler. Maybe three questions. First, food. How did you fuel up during the race during these
Yeah,
32 hours?
great question. So first of all, I carb loaded a couple of days prior, and people have different camps on that with the carb loading stuff. And I gotta say, I don't really like doing it because I really feel bloated when I'm like and really freaking lazy because I'm just like not moving. I'm just like eating. It really kind of sucks. So I don't know what I would do next time with that. But during the race, my strategy was to eat solid foods as often as possible, as early as possible, because I knew that once you're running that long, all the blood's going to your legs, other extremities, and so you're just not going to digest well. So I was eating all my solid foods first. The really interesting thing, and thank God I watched this documentary before, was Anton Krupika or something. This would be a really good podcast guest for you, by the way. He was doing the Leadville 100 and he was jamming Coca-Cola. And I was like, oh, that's sick. And these aid stations had the Coca-Cola. And pretty much from mile 50 on, I was basically running on Coca-Cola and broth maybe, and like a couple pancakes here and there. But like, it was pretty much Coca-Cola. I had like an extra bottle. I was just like, here, yep, Coca-Cola. My crew knew I wanted the Coca-Cola. Wow. And it was just the calories, the sugars, the carbs that kept me moving, and the caffeine, because then obviously you had to go all night. So yeah, that was a big win for me, was finding the Coca-Cola, and it kind of settled your stomach because it was whatever the pop is.
Right, possible sponsorship opportunity there for you.
Yeah, Coca-Cola.
Hooch and Coca-Cola.
Oh my, Mountain Dew reached out to me one time when I was first getting into that stuff, and I was like, should I do this? But I was like, I don't even drink Mountain Dew, and I don't even like necessarily promote that. Like, I promote pretty healthy stuff, so I denied it. And I saw another hiker do a promotion on it, and she just got ripped for it. I was like, okay, that was a good move.
All right, now the companion question to the how do you fuel yourself is, what do you do about having to go to the bathroom during a 100-mile race?
Oh, well, going number one, you're cool. Whatever, you just go in the bushes. Although I really didn't do that too much. I mean, I was probably quite dehydrated, but yeah, going two. Well, they had porta potties at a lot of the aid stations, but sometimes it's just like a through hike. I mean, you just got to pull over. And thankfully, when I had to do it, it was at night, so that was cool. So I was with a pacer, and I was just like, dude, we gotta like just get off the trail a little bit here. But it's nice because at least it's not during the day where people are running past, they can see you or whatever. You just shut your headlamp off, and it's like pretty private, actually. It's not bad at all. Really not bad.
All right. And during those 32 hours, 100 miles, how did you deal with the sleep deprivation? Did you hallucinate at all? How was that on you?
Dude, sleep dep, totally cool. Like I said, with the 4x4x48, and then when I was talking, I was doing a lot of mountaineering. So when we did Mount Rainier, we started at 9:30 p.m., went all day, and didn't end until 6 p.m. It was like a 20-and-a-half-hour day. And so I did a lot of like that type of stuff where we would get 1 hour of sleep. We'd go and summit Mount Baker at 1 a.m. type of thing that was helping me get past this like mental barrier of sleep deprivation that I always thought that I had. But I actually am pretty good. Like, I never hallucinated on the 100. I've never hallucinated at any of those other things that I was doing either. So I think like my brain must be decent with that. I will say that it was very cold, and me and my pacer didn't have as much clothing as we should have. And I actually gave him my gloves because he was like, his hands were killing him. And so that probably helped us because we were freaking cold. And the other thing was I took a half of a caffeine pill, and that was great. Caffeine pills are rock. But then also I was doing the Coca-Cola. So, I mean, I was pretty jacked up. So, and then but then get this, the light thing. Once the sun comes up, that light hits your eyes, new day. Totally new. And it's the same thing with the 4x4x48. Hold on to the morning because it's a totally different run. It's literally night and day.
Wow. All right. Now, what was your finishing time?
was 31 hours. It was either 23 minutes or 28 minutes, but I think it was 28 minutes. Yeah. And so back of the pack, but I'm cool with that, dude. I'm cool.
Absolutely. I mean, that is not a race where you're measuring against somebody else. I mean, just
No.
you're competing against yourself in that time limit. And I think if you finish, you finish. You're a 100-mile
Yeah.
finisher. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like got the belt buckle over here, which is pretty sweet. And that's all I wanted. I was like, I need that belt buckle.
Do you wear that on your hiking clothes, your climbing clothes? Big old belt buckle.
Yeah, it's a little heavy, Doc. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a little heavy.
It's not ultralight, that's for sure.
No.
All right. So if we have some listeners out there who are considering, you know what,
Yeah.
I've run a marathon, maybe 100-miler. I mean, the way the Hooch has described it has really piqued my interest. I'm going to try a 100-miler. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's planning to do a 100-miler?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have a YouTube video on this, like things to know before a 100-miler. And I'm trying to think of like some of the things, but I think you really need to have like a graduated, I'm like a big fan of like this graduated practice type of thing, right? Where, okay, if you're doing marathons, do a 50K, do then like a 50-miler. I skipped the 100K, but whatever. But I think like you have to experience some of these, like, okay, how aid state, like, because every ultra that I ran before this, I had specific lessons that I took with me to the 100. Like in my 50K, I was cramping really bad. Didn't really realize the importance of electrolytes. On my 50-miler, I was spending way too much time in aid stations, which made my time not as good as I wanted, which if I would have done that in my 100-miler, I would have been screwed. Every time I was at an aid station, I thought of the 50-miler and I was like, nope. And I would grab stuff, bounce. I never sat at an aid station. So I think taking lessons from like the graduated practice, like you could definitely go and try to do a 100-miler and you might even finish, but it might be pretty ugly, or you might fail like before, at mile 80 or something. And now it's like, oh, like I'm totally dejected. So I think learning the lessons from smaller ultras is like the best thing to do. And then when you start training for 100, make it fun. I probably ran 30 miles a week. That's it. Like, that's it. I was mountaineering on the weekends. I was doing a lot of bike packing. I was mixing it up, and I was just like trying to make myself really resilient. So, and then make sure you're strength training as well, because that'll come back to bite you if you're not.
Okay. Great tips. Now, I know you mentioned doing some climbing out there. You mentioned Mount Baker, Mount Hood.
Yep.
I know you climbed Mount Rainier, and
Yep.
those sound like they were all successful.
Yes, every single one. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear about some unsuccessful stuff.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the Wind River High Route?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay, so by the way, before I get into this, you just talked about Hood. The last time I was on your podcast, I believe I was talking about Mount Hood, and I was just like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to do it this weekend because like I don't want to die or blah blah blah. It just goes to show you like how much more comfortable I became doing this stuff, because now I've done Hood twice now. Actually, the second time was by myself. So interesting stuff. Regardless, failures. So the Wind River High Route is like, I think, the next level of through hiking, because it's not like, well, a little bit's on a trail, but for the most part, it's off trail. So a high route is simply just like, if you're looking at the mountains in your background of your thing, like you're basically going through that, but there's no trail. That's like the Wind River High Route. You're going through Talus. You have a kind of a route, a general route, but you don't have a trail to follow. So like you're picking your way through it and picking the best route. Extremely slow travel. Extremely slow. To put that into context, we started at a trailhead in Wyoming. It was only 100 miles. That's all this hike was. So 100 miles. We thought we could do it in 6.5 days. And the first day, one of our buddies got COVID and he had to drive back to Ohio that day. That was a buzzkill. But me and my other buddy continued, and it took us, we went, I think, 11 miles by 10 a.m. on a trail. Okay. And then at around mile 15, we got off trail and we had to start doing our off trail stuff. It took us, we summited Wind River Peak at 13,000 feet and we had to descend down a gully. Super sketchy. Talus, loose rock, cliffs. It took us, we only had to go like a mile and a half. It took us over 2 hours to descend that mile. And we were just ripped up. Like, I mean, dehydrated, altitude, exhausted, scared, because it was pretty scary up there. We were trying to beat the sun, because could not pitch a tent up there. And my buddy looks at me, he says, I don't think I can do this for 6 more days. And I was like, dude, that's exactly what I was just thinking. But I was like, let's just wake up in the morning. We'll see how it goes. So wake up in the morning. By the way, we're not where we wanted to be on our itinerary. We're actually 2 miles, not as close, whatever. 2 miles distance from where we wanted to get. Okay, well, we'll do 2 miles in the morning. Takes us to 10 a.m. again to make 2 miles. We start at 7. It takes us till 10 a.m., 10:30 to go 2 miles. We're going so slow. We're off. All that travel's off route. You're going, again, over talus, streams, whatever. We finally get to this lake that we were supposed to be camping at the day prior. And I'm just like, dude, like, I don't think we can do this in 6.5 days. Like, we've only went 23 miles and we're dead. And so we ended up calling it. I was just like, the only way that we can get out of here, but here was the problem. It was an end-to-end hike. Our buddy is now in Ohio. He was the one that picked us up and got us to the trailhead, the starting trailhead. So now our car is way in this other place. And we're a day and a half out from this trail, from any part of civilization. Like, the winds are super remote. So we're like, screw it. Let's just like start hiking out. So we start hiking out. Huge monsoon storm comes. We're like, well, let's just buckle down for a little bit. We get under a tree, blah, blah, blah. No, lasts for 4 hours. Lasts from 3 to 7 p.m. So we have like half a day where we're not even doing anything. We just have to stay in our tent. Wake up the next day. We get out to the trailhead. Takes us all day. And now we have to hitch. We have to hitch like to get to our actual car. It's like 3 hours away. We're like, oh my God. So I'm like, we're going to have to hitch in the nearest town. Then we're going to have to hitch the next day. And we ended up getting all the hitches. We hitched out into Lander. We got to Lander. We stayed overnight at this awesome park where all these other people were camping. Got 2 hitches in the morning and we got to our car. Get to our car. I left the lights on. Doesn't start. And it's a rental car, of course. And so we got to get jumped and all this stuff. And so, yeah, we had some bruised egos, but that's not even the worst of it, actually, because then I have to fly back home, right? But my flight, it's Monday. My flight isn't for 7 more days out of Salt Lake City because I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be doing the Wind River High Route, right? So we get back to Salt Lake City. We're staying with my buddy. We're seeing if we can stay with him for a couple days. Okay, sweet. I'm looking at those budget fares on my phone. I'm like, I got to buy a budget fare. Like, I don't really care what the time is. Like, I don't want to wait 6 more days in Salt Lake City and pay a hotel, whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to schedule another flight. So I'm looking, I'm like, budget fare. I'm like, maybe I won't, whatever. We wake up the next morning. I don't schedule it. I wake up and we're trying to get going real fast. We're scrambling. And I look at the budget fare and it went down like $50. I'm like, sick. I'm like, book. And I look at the information and I freaking booked it like I was still in Portland flying to Salt Lake. I booked it the wrong way. So now I have 2 flights, neither of which I want to do. 2 flights. So I'm like, oh, they'll switch it. Call and call and call. Nope. Basically, you're an idiot, Mr. Lipinski. So I buy a 3rd flight for the next day. And I'm like, whatever, dude. I just want to go home at this point. And so finally ended up getting home. A lot of money spent. Pretty big failure. But I think I realized that I like high routes, but that was a really tough one to start off on. That was the Skirka's version of the Wind River high route, which was like insanely tough. I just wasn't ready for it. So wasn't ready for how slow it was. But I think we'll be back. There's some other variations that I would like to do. So
Okay, I was going to ask you. You haven't checked that off. Is that still on the list?
Yeah, that variation of it, not for a while. I think I got to work up my skills for that.
Right.
I mean, there was some sketchy stuff on that. Like, they were saying class 3, like it was some of that was class 4. Like you go over the edge, you're gone type of thing. And it's super loose rock. Like I had a big boulder literally roll on my leg. Like I had to bench it off of me. And it's like, dude, I mean, isolated. Like we didn't see anybody that after 10 a.m. that first day. Like we didn't see anybody. So that was a weird feeling. But yeah, it was fun in its own little weird way, I guess.
Fun in terms of suffering.
Yeah, type 2.
Yeah, type 2 for sure. All
Yeah.
right. Now, tell us a little bit about the life of a content creator, an outdoor influencer. What kind of content are you putting out there for folks? What can they expect to find on your different feeds?
Yeah, man. I mean, well, you'll find that video, by the way. You'll find that failure video. But you also see, I do a lot of some different kind of Top Gear stuff, but I really love creating long form content, documentary style of my adventures and things like that. And that's primarily on YouTube. TikTok and Instagram is a little bit more of like a comedy kind of skit, more things. But I am getting more into keywords on that because they're prioritizing SEO. So I'm getting more like into the educational piece. But if anybody is actually interested in like the social media side, this is actually a really good plug for my course because I actually have a course on how to grow as an outdoor creator. So you can go into my Instagram and what is it? I always call it LinkedIn, but what is the link? We go into link in bio and it's not
Linktree.
Yeah. Linktree. Go into my Linktree. And for somebody that's just starting out, there's a free ebook that I have. You can have the free ebook for free, obviously. And then for other people, if they're really serious, I have an outdoor creator course. So ton of videos there that I don't have anywhere else that is all about how to grow as an outdoor creator, how to batch content quickly, how to get brand deals so you can make extra money to adventure more, how to understand all this kind of stuff. So that was actually a really good plug for that. Thanks.
Man, Hooch, I'm constantly amazed by you. Here I am talking to you. I'm thinking, okay, he's out there, he's running, he's hiking, but you've got ebooks, you've got courses for outdoor creators. I mean, who are you?
Well, I appreciate that, man. No, I really appreciate that because actually before this, I was really stressing about like where I'm like going in my like professional life and like what I'm trying to prioritize. And I think that in 2024 or 2023, sorry, that I am going to be prioritizing more of the professional side of this stuff because I'm really good at doing this physical stuff, but I still have some mental blocks and some mental limitations when it comes to the professional side. So there'll always be physical stuff. Like I always have to have that to keep in shape, which we might actually be going to Kyrgyzstan. That would be really sweet for like a 24,000 foot peak, possibly. Wow. But yeah, the professional side of things is something I need to work on a little more. So I appreciate that, man.
Well, I cannot wait to see where you are in 4022.
Best part of the podcast right there.
Hey, what's the time frame on the Kyrgyzstan?
So I was talking to my buddy. I actually met him at the top of Mount Hood, and this dude is freaking. I should set you up with him for an interview. We can talk later. He's an animal, and we're looking at next summer. So what's funny is I've never been out of the country. I literally just applied for a passport 2 weeks ago. So like, yeah, the first time I go out of country, like I'm gonna go to Kyrgyzstan, do a 24,000 foot peak maybe, and pretty on brand, right? Maybe.
Yeah, go big. That's right.
Right. We'll see, man. Yeah. So, we'll see where I'm at with jobs and stuff.
You don't meet with your friends like at a Starbucks and talk about this stuff. You meet on top of a mountain somewhere and talk about it. That's on brand as well. That's right on brand.
And You know what? You describe my life perfectly, and I would never want it anywhere else. Yep. Because a matter of fact, that girl that I moved out here with, she was a big fan of like going to brunch in Portland and blah blah blah, and I was just like not like into that. Blah blah blah. Would much rather meet up on a mountain. Yeah.
All right. Hey, after you get back from that 24,000-foot peak, you got to come back and tell us about it.
I would love to. Oh, dude, always love coming on the podcast and chopping it up with you, Doc.
Nice. Hey, Hooch, you know where we are?
Is it the pro tip insight?
Pro tip insight of the week.
Nice.
That's
Gotcha.
right, Half Calf. It is the pro tip insight of the week, that time of the episode where Hooch gets to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. What do you have for us, Hooch?
Okay. So since we were kind of talking about ultras, but this can also tie into through hiking. So one of the things that I brought with me that worked really well, especially my ultra, when you have to have your stomach is like nauseous and stuff, are these things called ginger chews. So it's basically like this ginger candy that ultra runners will take when their stomach starts to get nauseous and things. And so I took it. Was like I said, my stomach was great all throughout the thing. And actually, my girlfriend was getting nauseous a couple of days ago or something. And so I was like, hey, like go into my closet, whatever, grab these chews. Totally worked. So I think like having these on trail is not a bad thing at all, especially if you're prone to like upset stomachs. Because I mean, let's face it, you're not eating like the best diet out there. So this could be something that you might want to add into maybe like your little first aid kit or something. So that's a little bit of an outlandish, unique tip, but it's like, who's gonna say that?
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Ginger chews.
Yeah.
Or you could go Doc's route, and that is you just eat a half a pound of cheese before you go out on the trip.
Yeah,
And
not
you're
bad
good. You
idea.
don't have to worry about anything.
Right. Yeah, you could bring like 50% less TP, I guess, right? Yeah. That is going ultra light. That is an ultra light tip. Yeah.
There you go. All right, there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Scratch. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Chad, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures? What are those social media handles once again?
Yeah, Chattahoochee _ and you'll find me TikTok, Instagram, and then YouTube is my name, Chad Lubinsky. And then I have a news. Yeah, you're probably gonna be like, what the heck? And then I also have a newsletter in my link tree. So that that has got, dude, you're geeking me out. That has got exclusive tips on there. I only send it monthly though, so you're not getting spammed on it. But I am brainstorming a mountain creator. No, what was it? A mountain training academy course. We'll talk later. But anyway,
Wow.
Be kind of cool. Yeah, hopefully I could get that going.
You are impressive. I think you should just rebrand to outdoor media.
I think so too.
Everything.
I think so
outdoor
too.
media. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got it all covered.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
All right. Hey, remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
All right, Hooch, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, documentary, website, something, some kind of adventure media to keep our listeners connected to the trail, calling this our Adventure Media Recommendation. What do you have for us?
Oh, okay. So, oh my God, I have so many that I'm always watching. The one that jumps out at me though is called, and that's because I can't remember the name of the other one. It's called Lhotse, I think, Lhotse. It's a Himalayan peak, and it was the first ever ski ascent by this guy named Jim Morrison and Hillary Nelson. Really, me and my girlfriend watched it before her half marathon. It was really good documentary. Unfortunately, Hillary Nelson just passed away like 2 weeks ago up in the Himalayas on a ski.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So it was like really bizarre because I was like, oh my God, like I just watched that. I just watched that documentary.
Right.
But it was a really good documentary, and she was a savage. And you could tell in that documentary. And so she passed away, unfortunately, but she was doing what she loved, which I guess that's one way to look at it. But yeah, that's a really good documentary that I would watch on YouTube for free. And
Yeah, that had to be a little strange because if
yeah,
any good documentary that you watch, you feel a connection
right,
to the subjects in that documentary. You feel like you know them after a particularly
100%,
good one, and then to have that happen just a couple of
100%.
weeks later, that's got to be wild.
100%. And what was really weird too is there was another one on Amazon Prime that I was just watching with her in it as well. It was like a conglomeration of all these different climbers and things, and they were literally like specifically going over like death, and she was talking about it.
Wow.
And then like a week later, like she passed away, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah. But really good documentary, and I think Lhotse is a really cool name for a kid. If I ever had a kid, not bad. But I probably would have to climb it.
You can name your kids after Himalayan peaks.
Yeah, that like I haven't climbed, right? Like I don't know if that's cool or not.
You could have Lhotse, and then your second born could be K2. Kind of like Kid 2, K2. I mean, that fits, right? And then
That's not bad.
go from there. Yeah.
Like Dulageri.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Dropping some knowledge right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
What have we not asked you?
All right, Hooch. We're at that segment where before we wrap things up here, I'm going to ask you, what have we not asked you that you're dying to tell us about? What did we miss? What did we leave out?
oh man. What do we leave out? Let's see. I guess so one of the well, okay. Here's another extra tip for 100 milers. Around mile 80, I got this extremely painful shin splint in both of my shins. And by the time I was about at mile 90 or something, I was pretty much just dragging my left leg. Like I was basically dragging myself on my trekking poles. And what I actually ended up figuring out was that I never trained what is called your tibialis anterior muscle, which is like if you look at your shin right now and you like flex your foot up and down, it's like that muscle that would work from that. And so anybody that's even doing any kind of ultra, you're doing your 4x4x48, you're doing especially anything though with like a lot of descent, because that's where I started getting a lot of it. Train that tibialis anterior, because I totally neglected that. I was good with every single other muscle group, did not even think about that one. And so it's just a really good thing to know, like to bulletproof your armor before you do something huge.
So how do you train that muscle?
What I've been doing is I use a band, and I will like put a band and I'll like kind of wrap it around like a pole or something, or girth hitch it around a pole, and then I'll just sit down and I'll like do it like I would sit like I'm stretching my hamstrings, when your feet are out in front of you, and I'll just wrap that band around my toe on my shoe, and then I'll just flex my foot back and forth, plantar flex or whatever, and I'll do like 30 reps of it, and then I'll switch, and then I'll do like 3 sets of that. But a really good, I was on this free training program actually by the Uphill Athlete, and it was a muscular endurance workout, and that really preps me very, very well for the 100. But just the one thing I was missing was that part. So I would throw that in there for anybody's training, especially if you're a runner.
Okay, there you go. A second free pro tip. Nice job.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Hooch, that is a wrap from the John Freakumere studio. Any shout outs to friends and family?
My mom is in the hospital right now, unfortunately. So got to give a shout out to Mom, Mary, and obviously my dad. They both came out for the 100 a few weeks ago when I did it, and that meant so much to me, and it was awesome. So, and then also Haley, she's always supporting me. So yeah, all those important people in my life.
Well, Mary, if you're listening to this right now in the hospital, or maybe you're out of the hospital by now, listen to a lot of the other episodes on the John Freakumere Pod. They make you laugh, make you feel better.
Yeah.
You'll be on your feet in no time. Hope she does well.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you spent the entire day longing for the upgraded slop up in stateside. The trail is the trail.
Love it.
Embrace the suck.